My name is Claire Jensen. I'm 30, and I never expected my parents to empty my savings account to fund my brother's failing startup without telling me. If you've ever felt overlooked or betrayed by your own family, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Like this video and subscribe for more stories like this. It started with a phone call from my bank. Miss Jensen, we noticed a series of large withdrawals from your high-yield account. Just confirming those were authorized, my heart stopped. I hadn't touched that account in months. I logged in, $28,000, gone. The money I'd saved from working 2 jobs in my early 20s while living off dollar ramen and Craigslist roommates. All of it was meant for the down payment on my first home. Gone. There were 3 transactions, all marked as family transfer to an account under my father's name. I called them immediately. Dad, did you take money from my account? A pause. Then his voice, so casual I wanted to scream. Yes. We needed to help Matt with his business. You weren't using it. I couldn't speak. He continued, look, sweetie, it's still our money, in a way. We raised you, and Matt has real potential. This could change his life. What about my life? What about my years of sacrifices? What about the studio apartment with mold in the walls, or the internships I took without pay? Matt, my younger brother, had always been the golden child. Charismatic, visionary, my dad would say, but every business idea he touched seemed to turn to ash. A food truck with no food license, an app that crashed every time you opened it. Now it was some sustainable energy consultancy that existed only on a Wix page. Still, he got funding, and I got robbed. When I protested, my mom jumped in with her softest tone, soothing and infuriating all at once. Honey, don't make this a thing. Matt's struggling. He needs us. You don't want to be the reason he fails, do you? That line. You don't want to be the reason he fails. As if failure wasn't already chasing him down. As if my savings weren't mine. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I hung up, and for the first time in my life, I didn't cry. I just sat in silence. Something had broken. Not just trust, but the illusion that I was ever on equal ground with Matt. That my hard work would ever matter to them as much as his dreams. I gave it a week. Then I called again, calmly this time. I need the money back, I said. We can't, my father replied. It's invested. In what? Matt needed equipment, permits, travel. I checked the site. Still a placeholder. Still no clients. Just buzzwords and his headshot. They didn't apologize. They didn't offer terms. Instead, my mother sighed and said, Claire, please don't hold this over the family. We've all made sacrifices. Except I was the only one bleeding. I didn't argue. I opened a new account at a different bank. And I started withdrawing my emotional investment from them the way they withdrew my money. Quietly, without warning. They had no idea the line they'd crossed. No idea what I would do next. But that was the day I began my slow, deliberate exit. And my long, quiet revenge. My parents had been training me to accept less since I was 8 years old. It started with a piano recital. I'd practiced for weeks, nerves shot, fingers trembling, but I showed up in my best dress, waiting for them in the front row. They never came. They were at Matt's Little League game instead. He hit a home run, Claire, my mom said afterward, as if that explained everything. We didn't want him to feel unsupported. I nodded, then went to my room and played the same song again, just for the silence. Every memory I have of growing up feels like that. Me showing up, them showing up for him. When I got into the honors program, they barely blinked. When Matt passed pre-algebra after 3 retakes, they threw a pizza party. By high school, I'd stopped expecting anything. College was my way out. I won scholarships, worked nights at the library, took extra credits so I could graduate early. Meanwhile, Matt failed out of 2 schools. Each time, my parents said the same thing. He's just finding his path. When he finally came home with a half-baked plan to start his first business, a dog walking app, guess who fronted the money? Guess who gave up her summer internship to babysit his Great Dane while he pitched investors at coffee shops? Me. I was always the fallback, the dependable one, the support beam no one notices until it collapses. After college, I landed a job in project management. It didn't pay much at first, but I budgeted. No splurges, no vacations, no credit card debt. I cooked at home, I used coupons, I even brought reusable containers to avoid delivery fees. And slowly, I built savings. That savings was supposed to be my future, not a parachute for Matt's latest crash. But that's the thing with my parents. Every time they drained me, emotionally or financially, they said the same line: "You're strong. You'll bounce back." They saw my strength as a reason to give me less. They saw his failures as reasons to give him more. I started noticing it in their voices. The pride when they spoke about Matt, even when he messed up. The obligation when they mentioned me, even when I succeeded. When Matt forgot my birthday one year, my mom said, "He's busy. Don't take it personally." When I forgot to RSVP to his third launch dinner, my dad called me selfish. I never understood how loyalty to them felt like betrayal to myself. Until I saw the bank statement. That was the moment it all came into focus. Not just the money, but the pattern. The expectation that I would always be okay. That they could take from me without asking. That I would never fight back. But they were wrong. Because for the first time, I didn't shove the feelings down. I didn't justify it. I started documenting. I started remembering. The unpaid loans, the ignored milestones, the phone calls that only came when they needed something. I wrote it all down. Not out of spite, but because I needed to see it for what it was. Not a misunderstanding, not a phase, a pattern, a choice. And I'd been choosing them over me for too long. That was about to change. I thought maybe, just maybe, there was still room to fix things. So I did what I always did. I tried to talk. I invited my parents out for lunch. Neutral ground, public setting, less chance they'd turn it into a guilt session. They showed up 20 minutes late. My dad ordered steak. My mom complained the water wasn't cold enough. Neither asked how I was. I didn't bother with pleasantries. "I need you to understand what this has done to me," I said. I showed them a printed statement. My savings account, now reading $57.24. "That was everything I worked for," I said quietly. "I trusted you." My dad scoffed. "It's not like you're broke. You still have your job." My mom chimed in. "Claire, we're family. You think we'd let you fail?" My chest tightened. They already had. They just didn't recognize it because I hadn't collapsed yet. "I want it back," I said. My dad put his fork down. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said, voice steady. "I'm setting a boundary." They didn't like that word. My mom's expression went cold. "You've always had a chip on your shoulder, Claire. This is just more proof." It stung. Even now, even when I had proof in front of them, they needed me to be the villain to justify what they'd done. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, but I did say the thing I'd never dared to before. "I'm done supporting this family. No more holidays, no more emotional labor, no more pretending this is okay." My dad leaned back. "So what? You're cutting us off now like we're strangers?" I looked at them both. "No," I said. "You made that choice. I'm just accepting it." The check came. I paid it. Out of habit, stupidly, but I didn't say goodbye. I walked out, and I didn't look back. That night, Matt texted me. "Heard about your little tantrum. Don't worry, I'll pay you back when the business takes off." He added a winking emoji. I stared at it for a long time. Then I blocked his number. A week later, my parents sent a long email, full of deflections and twisted memories. They said they were disappointed in me, that I was burning bridges over a little money, that they didn't raise me to be ungrateful. Ungrateful. That was the word that broke me. Ungrateful for being stolen from. Ungrateful for being used. Ungrateful for daring to set a boundary. I didn't reply, but I started planning. Not revenge, not exactly, but something better, something quieter, something permanent. I started watching the housing market. I remembered something my dad had said offhand years ago, that the mortgage on their house was never fully refinanced after Matt's last failed venture. Something about high interest, deferred payments, we'll figure it out later. Now I was figuring it out, because while they were busy mismanaging dreams, I had been quietly climbing the ranks at my job. My title was now Senior Project Coordinator. And my bonus? It was enough to get pre-approved for a home loan. But I wasn't going to buy a home. I was going to buy theirs. I never thought revenge would come in the form of a real estate listing. But there it was, a foreclosure notice buried in a local property auction announcement. Address, 48 Henderson Lane, my childhood home, the one my dad always bragged about owning free and clear, though clearly that hadn't been true for a long time. It was listed as pre-auction, with a starting bid that was half what it was worth. I blinked twice, refreshing the page. Then I called my banker. A week later, I had a strategy. I didn't announce anything, didn't tip my hand. While my parents were still posting photos from Matt's latest business retreat, which looked a lot like a Vegas vacation, I was meeting with real estate attorneys. The day of the auction was gray and quiet. Perfect. It was held at the county courthouse. Bare bones. Just 5 people in the room. I walked in, holding a manila folder and wearing a neutral pantsuit. No dramatic sunglasses. No gloating smirk. Just composure. When the bidding opened, I was calm. No one else raised their hand. Not a soul. I won the house for $87,000. My hands trembled when I signed the paperwork. But not from nerves. From power. The house wouldn't transfer immediately. It was still under the redemption period. But once it expired, the title would be mine. Legally, quietly, and they had no idea. They were still living there, still unaware that the roof over their heads was now technically claimed by the daughter they stole from. I didn't rush the next step. Instead, I waited for the redemption period to lapse. I mailed one certified letter. No explanation. Just a formal notification of ownership transfer, addressed to occupants of 48 Henderson Lane. Then I called a locksmith, and I waited. The reaction came fast. First, a flurry of missed calls, then an email from my mother titled, "What have you done?" I didn't answer. My lawyer did. He explained the process, the legality, the timing, all of it clean, all of it final. They asked for an extension. I gave them 30 days. I wasn't cruel. But I wasn't their daughter anymore. A week before the move-out deadline, I drove by the house. The porch light was off. The garden had gone wild. The wind chime Matt made in 6th grade still clanged against the gutter, rusted and crooked. It wasn't the house I remembered. It was just a building. And soon, it would be mine. I didn't throw a party. I didn't post it online. I just signed the final transfer form. And that was that. They moved out quietly. No dramatic scene, no final plea, just silence. I found the key in the mailbox, taped to a note that read, "We hope you're happy now. Mom." No signature, no apology, just those 7 words. I stood in the empty living room and stared at the faint shadow of the family portrait that used to hang above the fireplace. The wall was a little darker where it used to be, just like the memories. It felt strange walking through the house I'd once memorized, now stripped of furniture, noise, and all the emotional clutter. The room where I'd spent sleepless nights studying for exams was bare. The kitchen where I cooked most of our meals when Mom was too tired was spotless, as if none of it had happened. I thought I'd cry, but I didn't. Instead, I opened the window and let the breeze in. Then I pulled out the folder I'd brought with me, new blueprints. I wasn't going to live here. This place had ghosts I wasn't interested in entertaining, but I was going to turn it into something new. I partnered with a local housing initiative, one that helped displaced single moms find transitional housing while job hunting. I wasn't just reclaiming the house. I was rewriting its story. Matt found out a few weeks later and sent me a voice memo. 37 seconds of pure rage. "You're unbelievable, Claire. Who does that to their own family? You think you're better than us now? You think you've won?" I didn't reply. Because he wasn't wrong. I had won. But not because of the house, not even because of the poetic justice. I'd won because I finally stopped needing their approval. I'd stopped asking to be seen. I'd stopped sacrificing my peace for people who thrived on my silence. That was the real inheritance I'd been denied all those years. Dignity, self-worth, freedom, Now I had all three, and I wasn't giving them back. The locks were changed, the title was clear, and for the first time in my life, so was I. After everything, the irony was this: losing my savings gave me back my life. I moved into a modest condo downtown, sunlight, quiet, and not a single memory stained by guilt. The first night I slept there, I didn't dream, I just rested. And for once, I didn't wake up feeling behind. I started therapy, something I'd always postponed because my family called it self-indulgent or too expensive. But the first time I said out loud, "They never protected me," something cracked open, and something healed. I stopped returning my parents' emails. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped trying to be the understanding one. Instead, I poured myself into work. And quietly, I soared. I was promoted again, Director of Strategic Operations, with a salary that my dad once said was unrealistic for someone like you. Turns out, it wasn't. Turns out, being underestimated can be fuel, if you know how to burn it clean. Matt? He moved in with a friend after his business failed again. Their startup went under when the grant money dried up. Apparently, charisma can only stretch so far when there's no product. He tried launching a podcast, then coaching, then a subscription box for Founders by Founders. Each time, my parents bailed him out until they couldn't. They sold their car, then started renting a place half the size of their old one. For the first time, I think they saw what it meant to stand without a safety net. I didn't celebrate. I didn't mock them. But I also didn't help. And that, for me, was everything. Because for most of my life I would have. I would have bent backward to keep the peace or do the right thing. Now, I understood that peace isn't real if it costs you your voice. And doing the right thing sometimes means doing nothing at all. I built a new community. People who didn't see me as a backup plan or an emotional dumping ground. Friends who didn't compete but showed up. Colleagues who valued me for what I brought to the table, not just for what I cleaned up after everyone else left. And slowly, something amazing happened. I stopped flinching at emails from Mom. I stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. I stopped needing closure. Because some doors don't deserve to be reopened. Some houses are meant to be gutted and rebuilt. And some families are lessons, not legacies. I drove by the house one last time. It looked different now. Fresh paint, new shutters, a wooden sign on the porch that read, "Welcome Home, Transitional Housing Initiative." A single mom and her 2 daughters live there now. She sent me a thank you card once, handwritten in looping cursive. "I cried when we walked through the door," she wrote. For the first time in years, it felt like someone saw us. And that, more than ownership, more than poetic justice, was the most unexpected victory. I'd turned a side of my own erasure into someone else's new beginning. People say family is everything. But I've learned that family isn't who shares your blood. It's who protects your boundaries, respects your voice, and never asks you to shrink so others can shine. I haven't spoken to my parents in over a year. Matt sent a few vague, "hope you're well" texts. I didn't block him this time. But I didn't respond either. Some silences are sacred. Some stories don't need sequels. Now, when people ask me about success, I don't mention promotions or homeownership. I talk about peace. I talk about sleeping through the night without resentment pooling in my chest. I talk about the day I stood in my old bedroom, empty and sunlit, and said to the walls, "You don't get to define me anymore." And I meant it. I was never the problem. I was just the mirror they refused to look into. But I see myself now, and I'm proud of who's staring back. Have you ever had to walk away from people you once called family? Drop your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your power. Send this to someone who needs to know they're not alone.